Dr. Bambang Susantono, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A great pleasure to meet with all of you. Last panelist, who is the only not economist, still an engineer.
You still have a chance to be an economist.
So I was wondering why I don't become a great economist. But economy for me is a mystery, you know. When something goes wrong, and then every economist tells us that, oh, there is invisible hands. So like paranormal, you know. Gak kelihatan tangannya. Or another one is that the ceteris paribus, you know. They are trying to model and too complicated. Okay, let's treat all other variables constant. So ceteris paribus or all else constant. That's economics. So again, I would like to use a lot of pictures and graphs because I know that I'm the last person that has the presentations today. Some of you already being tired, loading up with all the informations, and because all of you, I guess, are Indonesian, except you, but you know Indonesia very well, right? Because you mimpinya Indonesia. So I will use right hand side. I will use bahasa gado-gado. Can you hear? So my arguments about the economy is that if we would like to have a competitive advantage and as well as the competitiveness that is very high, we have to have a good connectivity. And that is my area. My area is on transportation and infrastructure, and I would like to make argument for that. Some of the argument has been also being raised by my colleague from this morning, either Pak Umar Gloro, Pak Rizal Ramli, Pak Faisal Basri, and also Pak Rizal. By the way, Pak Umar, when you presenting there, you are like a DJ to me. Dark with the DJ table. Okay. What is interesting about this slide is that 71% of populations will be coming in the cities, producing 86% of GDP on 2030. Nowadays, more than half of our population lives in city, so we are already urbanized society. And they are contributing about 74% of GDP. So again, this is one of the characteristics that we have. We are urbanized society, and whether you like it or not, you have to deal with it. And interesting enough that 86% of GDP comes from urban areas and 63% from mid-sized cities. So not all the big cities, the metropolitan cities, the mega cities that contribute only to our growth, but now becoming the middle-sized cities. Okay? City-size Jepara, city-size Pekalongan, city-size Tegal, Payakumbuh. Those are the middle cities that now has a lot of economic growth. And if you see this table, if you see this chart, you will see that most cities that grows high, located outside Java. 7% of this, more than 7% growth. The green one, you see the dot there, they are located outside Java. This is one of the promising figures that we have. And if you see here, those cities that are now already big, they are on the maturity level. They are, developing around 5 to 7% or less than 7%. Okay. And one of our strengths also is because we have what we call the demographic bonus. Ya. Jumlah orang yang bekerja produktif lebih besar dari jumlah orang yang tidak bekerja atau belum bekerja. Ya. Remember, China right now is a bit ngerem dia, karena apa? Karena jumlah orang tuanya di sana bertambah. We are going to enjoy this until 2037, and this is the window of time where we can have a lot of productive things together and be one of the competitive nation in the world. Otherwise, this window will over, and then we also going to be experiencing by other cities that, the aging society like Japan, for example. So, a lot of projections that we will be one of the largest economy in the world. MK3E.
Defending it.
No, it's a good theory. Indicates that we need about 500 billion US dollars to develop our infrastructure, from transportation, basic infrastructure such as water supply, sanitation, ICT infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, if we would like to become a competitive nation. So how to tap all potential resources and be competitive in the era of globalization? My argument that we have to connect all the center of economic growth, or the center of productions, or the center of distribution, and all the way goes to the market. We have to have facilities, facilities that can enable our flows of goods, our flows of people, and our flows of services to become, very mobile in those centers. And because we are an island nation, archipelago countries, we have to have what we call the three levels of connectivity. The first one, what we call the intra-island. This is in the island connectivity. Second one is inter-islands, and the other one is between us and other part of the world. But we can also see that as urban or cities infrastructure, or urban infrastructure, and the regional infrastructure, and international infrastructure are us and the other part of the world. And we have to do so by integrating not only sea transportation, but also sea transportation with land transportation, with railway transportation, with air transportation. At the end of the day, kapal pasti akan berlabuh. At the end of the day, pesawat pasti akan mendarat. So multimodal transportation is one of the key. You cannot just rely or strengthen one type of transportation. Okay. In regional one, Pak Faisal Basri already mentioned about this. We have to deal with ASEAN economic community. Whether we like it or not, we are facing that, and better we are prepared for that. And the master plan of ASEAN connectivity not only deal with the physical one, with the infrastructure one, but also what we call the institutional connectivity, which is the trade facilitations, such as custom, harmonizations, quarantine harmonization and stuff like that, but also people-to-people connectivity, in which some days we are dreaming that ASEAN also have like a Schengen visa. We will have an ASEAN visa, so that we can move from one country to other country freely without having to, immigrations or other procedures. Let's see some of the ASEAN connectivity here. We have highways and railways. For highway, goes along here, but if you see all the maps here, you will see that there are two kind of groups, countries in ASEAN. One is the mainland one. They are here. Most of them are here. And then there are archipelago, the island state nation, which is Indonesia here, part of Malaysia, Brunei. By the way, Pak Faisal, I'm not supporter of Jembatan Selat Sunda. I'm supporter of the ferry strengthening in Selat Sunda. The ferry that I imagine is that the ferry that can also have some facilities for the railway. And if you see here, some railway can go to the ferry and then it's transported like what we call the movable bridge. So ferry is a movable bridge in theory of transportation. For port, we have 47 designated ports in ASEAN. 14 of them are in Indonesia. So you can see how important Indonesia in facing all the competition era in ASEAN. And we have to compete for that. This is also very controversial one, ASEAN Open Sky Policy. Whether our sky is really open for all ASEAN. For me, when I was in Ministry of Transportation, this is kind of like a miscoordination between us and Ministry of Trade. The one that trying to open and trying to sign the ASEAN Open Sky Policy is the Ministry of Trade. Our position is still not, we don't want to sign the agreement for that. Why? We would like to have stronger air domestic connectivity before we open up our market. And if we open our sky, we also would like to open limited airport only. So the compromise situation is that we only open 4 airports: Medan, Jakarta, Surabaya, Denpasar, and Makassar 5. But that already constitutes 60% of our market. 60% of 100 million of people that fly in Indonesia. And that is one of the largest in Asia. Yeah. Okay, so in those kind of situations, we would like also to have not only accelerating the economic growth, but also would like to have a more equal distribution of wealth throughout Indonesia. Yeah. You see these contrasting figures between Papua and Jakarta, you will see that how far we are in terms of development in many parts of Indonesia. And this is my favorite illustrations to show you what's the effect of infrastructure in terms of regional economy. This is a story about Taiwan actually, between Taipei and Kaohsiung. They are 345 kilometers apart. Taipei is here, Kaohsiung is here. Until 1978, it takes 1 day to travel between the north and the south. And as a result, along the corridor, there are many urban centers or activity centers that are emerging on this corridor at the time. When the Sun Yat-sen Freeway opens in 1978, the time to travel between north to south cuts by only 5 hours. As a result, there is agglomeration of cities along this coast, and small cities like this become one city, sort of like the Jabodetabek, or Gerbang Kertasusila, or Maminasata in Makassar, or Mebidang in Medan Deli Serdang in Sumatra. But one that is very interesting is that when they open the high-speed train. Okay? So now, from Taipei to Kaohsiung, it's only 90 minutes. And how does translate to the regional development? You can see the corridor economy that developing along the corridor. Now it doesn't matter, people live and work in any part or any point in this corridor. You can choose. Because from the north to south, only 90 minutes by train. So can you imagine this if it is happened also in Java? The northern part of Java right now is already being, connected by the double track of railway. Some days maybe we will have a high-speed train. We don't know yet at this point. But I believe that this corridor will be one of the key of Indonesia in the future as a prime mover of our Indonesian regional economy. But again, let me remind you that connectivity always comes with other side of possible negative terms. If the lagging region that we connect is not ready or is not having a good position, they will be exploited by the advanced region. So they have to position themselves in such a way that both of them can be, graduated from one state to another state. This is also very interesting when we try to model in regional development all kind of infrastructure, all kind of the cities economy, urban economy, and regional economy, and try to predict what will be happening in terms of economic corridor in Indonesia. As you can see, if you put all the Jalan Raya, the roads here, Jalan Kereta Api, including possible high-speed train, and then we put all the Bandar Udara, the airport, we put also all the ports there, and we put the ferry system that we would like to have on Indonesia that the majority have 3 routes here, the northern 3, the middle routes, and then the southern routes. And we predict that there will be some agglomeration economy is coming. And then we predict also that there will be also a corridor economy that will be forming. But let me emphasize on this area here. This area, what we call is the area that left behind. Why? Because under the current condition, if we are not giving them affirmative actions to grow, they will be left behind because again, this area here, Maluku Tenggara, and also some part of Sulawesi, they are just so poor that they don't have a potential to be, injected or to be accelerated to become part of the other economic growth. Okay. So in all, my argument is that, okay, macroeconomy is good, but on the regional one, we have to balance between urban and rural development, between growth center and backward areas, between intra-island and inter-island, between domestic as well as international connectivity. So let me also give you some example of the program that was being crafted before in the last administrations. Indonesia is actually having a lot of ports, 2,154 ports in all of Indonesia. So if we divided our coastline, every 40 kilometers of coastline, we should have one port. But the questions, the challenge that we have is how we try to restructure the function of the port itself. There is a hub port, there is a collector port, there is a feeder port. We have to function them in such a way that they are forming an efficient system of sea transportation. We are also developing not hard but also soft infrastructure. This is very important because the complaint of high logistic costs that also being raised by Pak Faisal Basri usually coming from this side. They don't have 24/7 operations. There's a lot of corruption in the port system. They are not very efficient in trying to handle all the goods movement and so on and so forth. So this is a big homework for us, actually, in terms of how we will make all the ports very efficient. This is actually what we call Pendulum Nusantara, that becoming now the tall seaway. But this is the cikal bakal, this is the embryo. What we would like to have is that we see the sea across this area, like Pak Faisal says, jangan melihat laut itu sebagai pemisah, tapi lihatlah dia sebagai perekat. And to do so, we have to have a very strong domestic connectivity and also linked by INAPORTNet. This is a system where you can see electronically between one port to another port, what is happening. If some shipping that goes for Belawan, for example, today, then Jakarta already knows that, okay, tomorrow there will be some shipping coming, there will be ships coming, and mereka pakai apa nanti, berapa besar yang harus dibongkar, berapa truk yang dibutuhkan, ke warehouse mana nanti akan ditaruh, itu semua harusnya sebagai satu sistem elektronik. Dan itu namanya INAPORTNet, INA itu singkatan dari Indonesia Portnet, sistem elektronik yang kalau makin kita tidak bersentuhan dengan orang di pelabuhan, itu makin tidak ada map yang berkeliaran. The problem is the map. You need the map from one table to another table. So many tables. Satu atap, pelayanan satu atap, but there are so many windows. That's what's happening right now. Satu atap tadi kebanyakan windows. Ferry also very important because ferry in terms of transportation is movable bridge, like I said before. So you are moving all the goods and people. And in Indonesia we consider three major routes. One is the South Belt. Actually, I was inaugurated this South Belt in 28th of October 2014 waktu Sumpah Pemuda. Kita selesaikan ini bahwa orang kalau mau off-road semua silakan coba dari Sabang sampai Merauke, saya jamin bisa. Karena 40 hari Kompas sudah membuktikan. 40 hari, Pak. Silakan, Pak. Coba, Pak. Benar-benar oke loh, benar. Kita waktu itu terharu karena di Merauke ya, pada waktu itu Sumpah Pemuda, terus bupatinya bilang matahari buat Indonesia tidak akan ada di barat di Jakarta kalau di timur tidak terbit. Jadi tolong bangun kita duluan. Matahari selalu terbit di timur, gitu. Barat Indonesia tidak akan punya matahari kalau tidak terbit di timur. Jadi itu sudah, ini sudah. Kemudian yang tengah ini juga sebelum saya menyelesaikan tugas saya sebagai Wakil Menteri juga kita selesaikan di bulan April 2014. Yang belum sekarang yang atas ini. Yang hijau di atas belum. Kita harapkan nanti ini perpaduan satu jalan raya arteri yang besar sama ferry-nya itu akan membentuk tadi sambung menyambungnya di satu, yang nyambungin ini Bang Faisal. Ini nyambung kita ini. Menarik, the railway infrastructure development nowadays is only the red one that is operating. Yeah. Part of Java, South Sumatra, a bit on Padang area, Sumatera Barat, and also Sumatera Utara. But in the future, there will be something like this, including the possibility of the high-speed train of 727 km between Jakarta and Surabaya. Okay. We are also developing the cargo movement facilities, such as this one. Yeah. We have several container terminal as well as dry port. This is Tanjung Priok, the terminal Kali Baru. First stage, 1.5 million TEUs box capacity will be starting late this year. The full capacity of this additional one is 4.5 million TEU box, hopefully in the next 2 years. And hopefully another stage that we are here, that will be built in addition to the stage one, will be about 6 to 6.5 million TEUs. That's going to be happen in another 5 years, I believe. Surabaya also having some programs also. We would like to increase the capacity of Port Tanjung Perak. So for port, there are some of the railway port links that we would like to have along the Indonesian major ports. For airport, actually we have right now 237 airports in all of Indonesia. Only 26 is being managed by Angkasa Pura 1 and 2, state-owned enterprise. The rest, ya, kecil-kecil one ya, yang tersebar nggak karuan itu, silakan banyak sekali di sini. Yeah. So if you are talking that semen, harga semen Bang Faisal very expensive in Papua, ya iya karena mereka naik pesawat, gitu kan. Bukan karena sea transportation cost. Sea transportation cost only maybe twice. Tapi kalau yang naik pesawat itu sama dengan orang gitu. I would like also to show you that our focus not only the large airport like this, but imagine also that we have something like this. This is very essential for our brother and sister. Yeah. Because for the commodities, the basic needs, we have to have this kind of transportation facilities. Airstrip like this. Only in Indonesia you can have durian in airport. Bener nih kejadian tuh. International airport loh, gitu ya. Waktu kita lapor sama Pak SBY bilang, udahlah kan kasihan mereka nggak pernah lihat gitu. Biarin aja lah, akhirnya nggak diapa-apain, jadi kotor kayak gini. Tapi yang datang satu orang yang nganter itu dia 20 bis kali. Dia love to see that, you know, it's okay lah. Itu temporary, mudah-mudahan. Tapi saya kira sampai sekarang ini sudah nggak ada sekarang. Tapi yang kayak gini masih banyak. Gitu. That's the way the transformation of our social engineering, social culture also change. Yeah? In the future, there is also some concept about aerotropolis, kota yang berbasis airport. Ini seperti bukunya John Casarda, akan dibuat di Kertajati ini daerah Subang. Soekarno-Hatta yang sekarang sumpah nggak karuan itu harus memang diperpanjang, diperbesar. Walaupun we have some constraint on the land side issues. So let's see some Jokowi's program now. The real program of Jokowi to develop their country. This is something that they would like to build. Okay, 15 industrial estates, mostly outside Java. They would like to develop this. Yeah. Look at Bitung, Halmahera, Bintuni, Morowali, Konawe, Landak. I don't know this situation. And then special economic zone, they would like also develop some engine of growth by having a special economic zone that has a lot of fiscal and non-fiscal incentive. For example, they have a tax holiday, they have a special ownership, foreign ownership rules, they have a special immigration rule, they have a special labor arrangement also in the special economic zones. They would like to build this much special economic zone in Indonesia in the next 5 years. 15 new bandara airport will be built. If you see this, mostly in outside Java. Some of them are on the border, like Miangas, Lutung in Natuna here. The Kertajati that I told you before is here. Namiwe here, Kabir, Alor, along this way. For the tol laut, they will build 24 port development. Again, mostly outside Java, because that tol laut goes like this. This is the feeder ports as well as the main port of tol laut. For railway, they will build the Trans-Sumatera Railway, the Java Southern double track. The northern one we have already completed. The Kalimantan Railway, and the Sulawesi Railway, as well as the dream to have a railway in Papua. This is what Joko is promised last year. For urban railway, there is a MRT. Is that MRT? Masih rapat terus? No, it's already constructing. It's already being constructed, and now it's one of the sumber of macet, you know. There will be, I think they should complete the airport link by next year. The Soekarno-Hatta until Duku Atas goes to Manggarai, that will be completed here. As well as the double track, not only 2 track, tapi 4, because they have to separate between commuter lines as well as the regional or intercity lines. Surabaya will have also some programs. Bandung also have some monorail as well as the east-west strengthening of our urban railway. Anybody from Bandung? Kepada larang di Calongka. Monorail in Palembang, Manado, Batam. Batam is also in the designing stage right now to have urban railway, as well as Makassar. Toll road, they would like to develop 1,000 kilometers of toll road. But in reality, in the last 5 years, it's less than 100 kilometers because of the land acquisition problem. So that's the reality, but still, they would like to build 1,000 kilometers. So there are a lot of potential, there are abundant of business opportunity, but again, connectivity will determine Indonesia competitiveness. The question is that, can he deliver? So,
yes, he can.
Mana Bang Rizal? Some people started, to put another forward here. LESS. I'm not there enough to put it. For me, it's a matter of execution. And execution needs 2 factors. One is leadership, another one is the management capacity. We hope that we will have a good management capacity as well as a good leadership. If we fall in this, okay, that's fine. That's what we are, expecting in the next 5 years. But if here or here, then we have with some problems. If we don't have a good management capacity, it's a bit chaotic. If we don't have a leadership capacity, it's a bit bureaucratic. But what we are afraid of is that we have this one. Low leadership capacity as well as low management capacity. So in all the bottom line, there are opportunities, hard work ahead. There will be no calm water like this. No, I don't think so. I think Pak Umar also
Is that
agree with me.
Is that in Jakarta?
No, kalau bahasa like this,
That's banjir.
something like this, yes. A lot of turbulent ahead. And for that, I will leave it all to you for the conclusion. Thank you very much.
Points raised by